Hey everyone, welcome to this week's episode of Getting In, a College Coach Conversation. My name is Ian Fisher, and I'm going to be your host for today's show. We've got a really great show lined up for you. We're going to be talking in the finance corner about paying for college in the spring and different strategies that you might use as those bills start to show up. We're also going to spend some time for you seniors who are getting early decisions back from colleges, unpacking what it means to be deferred in early action, to be accepted in early decision, and how to approach the process from here forward. So if those decisions are starting to trickle in, and I know for some of my students, they already are, you'll want to hear that second segment just to better understand what those decisions mean for the rest of your process. But before we tackle those two categories and conversations, we want to talk a little bit about the juniors today. Now, we are now in December. And being in December, we have shifted a little bit of our focus from seniors who have largely submitted their applications and finalized their essays over to the juniors who are now on the cusp of applying to college in the coming year. So if you're watching this on video, it might look like I'm doing this whole segment by myself. That's because Becky Leichling, who is here, had the clever idea to hide herself on video while I was doing the intro. For those of you who are listening, you have no idea what I'm talking about, but I'm going to welcome Becky Leichling, a longtime guest and college coach educator, to the show today. Hey, Becky, why don't you say hello so everyone knows you're here?
Hi, Ian. It's so great to be here on the radio show with you and to talk to an adult after the last 6 hours of providing childcare for my 3-year-old who is home from a COVID exposure.
For like the third time this fall, right? Yeah, difficult
we
stuff.
Are ready for holiday break here. I am with all these juniors ready to talk about
that's right. So holiday break is coming up for juniors. And I think hopefully they have not been home over the course of the last few months, although who knows. But they have a couple of weeks, depending on their school schedule, maybe 2 or 3 weeks of unscheduled time coming up here, where I think you and I would probably agree that the first goal of this time is to relax, to sleep, to enjoy time with friends and family. Maybe you're going on a trip, maybe you're welcoming some people into your home. If you can do that safely, that's great. But I think a lot of students want to get a jump start on the application process, and it feels like now is a natural time to start doing that. Is that right? Would you tell students, you know what, don't worry about it, you can tackle this stuff later? Or would you say there are some key things that you could do, especially if you're hungry to do that here in December?
Yeah. I love the way you framed that. And I am also so glad that you started by saying we both agree that the first thing to do is take a break, because I was brainstorming for, what would I talk about? And I wrote down number 1, take a break. Mm-hmm. Your grades will be better next spring. You will be happier next spring. You will sleep more next spring if you take advantage of this winter break to actually rest and recharge. So to me, that is the number 1 most important thing for college planning, is that you are able to start next semester on a strong foot because you rested and recharged. So I don't even want to skip over that to the next section. It's from a college perspective, take a break this winter break as your life allows.
Can we just a second there? Because I think we've seen students, I think, going back to school this fall, being in person, and just, I think, being surprised by expectations from teachers, the demand of energy that is required from them to be in person now, the kind of energy that is required to be in school with a mask on and still have to emote and, connect with peers. So really, taking a break is something I think that is essential here, particularly because of this last semester. How does a student avoid feeling like they are missing out on an opportunity to make progress while relaxing, right? How do you get away from that idea of I should just be sleeping here, but do you have any recommendations for that?
You are speaking to my soul. I'm sure my partner would be glad that you're asking me this question, because as soon as our daughter goes to bed, I'm like, okay, we got to do the dishes. We got to do the laundry. And he's like, can we just sit for a moment?
Yeah.
And I get why that's necessary. We're doing this again tomorrow, full-time working from home. And so that is how I am framing my entire perception of this conversation about juniors over winter break, it is harder to do thought work. We always know how to get a task done.
Yeah.
If your parents ask you to unload the dishwasher, you can do it. Even if you're busy, it takes you 3 minutes, you just get it done. But if you have to have a difficult conversation, that takes so much more out of you.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why if you have capacity over winter break to be thinking ahead to college, I would suggest starting with the thought work, the stuff that's harder to squeeze in, the stuff that's harder to just get done by staying up another half an hour. And so for me, for juniors planning ahead to the college planning process, I would want to clear your calendars, clear your schedule, go for a walk with someone that you trust and love, and talk about what makes you be your best. Where do you learn best? What do you need to thrive? The big picture questions about you're making this huge change about every aspect of your life in a year. That's not researching the best computer science program. It's like, wow, this is going to be big. What are you going to need to plug into that new space and really maximize it? And so I would start by planning it out. And like, this is even just thinking about like, if you have had a busy day and you realize, oh, we don't have the ingredients for dinner, and you go to the grocery store when you're hungry at 5:30 p.m., it's like, what do I need? I'm going to get pasta and sauce. And do we have mushrooms? It's like, that's a stressful process versus on Sunday afternoon, if you make a list of things you need for the grocery, you can go check, do we need more milk? It's easier to shop if you've first made your list carefully of what you actually need. And so to me, that's the challenge of winter break is what do you need in a college? So that when you go onto the market, you start doing your college research, you are searching with intention.
Yeah, I like the framing of thought work versus task work as well. And I think even the process you're describing here has some task work involved in addition to thought work, which is really nice because when I have to sit down and do some thought work, sometimes it can be hard to get into that mindset, to get into that mode of really engaging with big, complicated ideas. And if I have some tasks that I can tackle first, that kind of warms me up. And what's cool about this is you can create a task for yourself of making a schedule. When am I going to have that walk and conversation? Who am I going to talk to? What are some questions that I might want to ask? And just write those things down. Don't challenge yourself too much to think outside the box and be creative there, because the creativity is going to happen when you're actually on the walk and you get to have that discussion.
I also totally agree with you. And I would say if you have done that thought work of making the list, setting the task, what are the questions you're going to ask, I would actually share that list with the person you're going on a walk with, especially if it's like, a parent or a trusted adult who knows you. If you surprise mom and dad, why do you think I should go to college? To be financially independent, get out of this house. Versus if you say, hey mom, tomorrow night after dinner, can we go for a walk? I'd love to just get a sense of what college was in your life or not, what your hopes for me are or not, right? Then that person will be better able to really meet you in this thought work versus being surprised by the big questions.
So this is an easy conversation for you and me to have because we talk about college all the time. And I think we've seen so many different iterations of students who have different goals, and we know about the institutions that will help them to meet those different goals. We understand Arizona State versus Reed College or Carleton or whatever it may be, right? A lot of students who are starting this process have only vague notions of what college is, only superficial idea of what to expect from those 4 years. What do they need to know in order to be able to have that conversation? How do they get past I don't know what I want kind of paralysis that I think postpones a lot of the college research that comes in the early part of the year?
That's a great question. And I immediately, again, went to two different parts of the answer, of a tasky part and a framework part. Okay. You're right that teenagers going to college haven't done that before. And other than, TV, movies, books, the concept of college it's not real beyond what whatever Veronica Mars episode you've watched most recently. We're on a great binge over here, but you have lived your life, right? You have gone to school, you have made friends, you have felt safe or unsafe in your home. You have already been doing life. And so that's why I would say try to separate it from this huge concept of going to college. And I know it's huge and I'm not trying to minimize that, but like tomorrow, what do you need to wake up and be ready for the day?
Mm-hmm.
In class, what do you need to feel smart? You do already know how to answer that question if you give yourself space to think about it.
Right.
And then the other part from a process perspective is, again, I'm not trying to minimize the importance of the college search and finding the right fit college, but I do think it is just another market product. And we have all been shoppers before. Do you think about the last big thing you bought, which for a teenager, maybe they were able to buy a car, maybe they bought a prom dress, maybe they bought something where they spent they had an approach that worked for them.
Mm-hmm.
And when we bought our car, we went to the dealer and we test drove 3 and we purchased it because I'm overwhelmed by choice. I need it to work. But I know that some other people would be looking at Consumer Report, would be going on the portals, would be doing this, that, or the other thing.
That's what I did. Yeah.
And you got to do what works for you to feel good about your process. And so I think both recognizing that you are already a savvy liver of your own life, and also that you know how to be a savvy consumer, whether it's to purchase a video game or whatever. So figure out how to make this just one more savvy purchase.
Yeah.
What are the pieces that you need? And how do you like to feel informed about your consumption?
Yeah, I think that's right. And I use that same sort of analogy with students. I think that it's also worth acknowledging that this is a bigger purchase and that it's more of a commitment than a lot of those others may be. And if you don't like your car, you can always sell it and get a new one. You could transfer from a college, but I think that that's a disruption that students don't really want to engage with, right? And it is a very specific 4 years of time. No, I mean, I'm not disagreeing with the analogy, but I do think that it's worth acknowledging for students. There's a lot of baggage or concern or worry that comes with, am I making the right choice here? Because it feels like it's a really significant kind of decision. Do we need to help students understand something about this process that takes some of the pressure off of that choice? Or is it worth acknowledging that and saying, hey, just do your best and see where that takes you? How would you approach that kind of concern that students bring forth when they start their research?
I think young people have been moving beyond their family home for millennia, right? And that is always huge, always huge. And American college has become this thing over the last few generations that, in addition to that huge developmental leap, is also this weighty social media. Like there's just so much baggage. You said baggage. I love that. And I think I want to acknowledge and celebrate how big it is, what kids are doing. Yeah. And also just remind them, like, you can do this. You are going to do this. And you got to do it in a way that lets you sleep at night. And so if your best friend has a spreadsheet and is spending an hour a day researching colleges and you're like, don't do that. Like that, you don't need that to make a good choice for your next step. Yeah. And like you said, you can always transfer. You can always take a break. You can take there's this, you're not signing a contract in blood that now this is your choice and your life is on from here. It's just your next step. And I get that college is a bigger investment and purchase than even a car is, but it's still something that you can do if you figure out how to do it in a way that's not going to break you. And then don't worry how other people are doing it.
I think you're absolutely right. And, part of, I think, the goal is, when you were looking at purchasing your new car, right, you found 3 to choose from. You found a list, right? And you started with the priorities that you had. And I think that with this college search, the goal of certainly your winter break exercise, but even the process of developing your college list is not to find the one, but to find a handful that you're ultimately going to apply to. That's a really, really different kind of goal to consider. I want to ask you, because there has not been any mention of major or professional career path within the context of this conversation. And I spoke with a father yesterday who was talking with us at College Coach for the first time. And he said, she doesn't know what she wants to do. And I told him, that I think that's okay. And he just said, that's music to my ears. He was so thrilled to hear that she didn't have to identify her major or her career path because she wasn't sure of what she wanted. But I think not all parents have that same kind of reaction to that idea. Not all students are comfortable with the idea of not knowing. How would you talk to students about using this time to identify possible career paths or academic majors in college?
I'll go back to something you said at the very beginning of like, if you have the energy for action, and that's what I hear in your question. If someone wants to decide their major right now, I'm with you that you don't have to. But if you want that, if that's going to give you, if you're in this swirling noise around you, if having a focus on a major to career pathway gives you confidence, great, go for it.
Yeah.
I would really embrace in the same way I said, college is this nebulous floating thing that we only see in the movies. Careers are also nebulous floating things that we only see in the movies or what parents do. And so I would take that mindset of like learning about it. I would set up an interview, a coffee break with some adults in your broader ecosystem that have a cool job and ask them about their job and ask them, what do you need to be good at this job? What are the skills that help you be good at this job?
Yeah.
Again, with the focus on thinking, I would veer away from opening up the question of what are the tasks that I need to take to get to that job? And you can ask that question for sure, but I would really step back to start with what even is this thing? And I think a great website is mynextmove.org, which has even like a little career inventory to, what are the things that you could be good at? But then it also digs deeply into what is a day in the life of this job? What are the technical skills and the 21st century capacity thought work that one needs to thrive in this role? What are related jobs? What's the growth or decline of that profession? So there's a lot of good information there. Again, from the concept of understanding the market, not committing in blood to your life's work.
Yeah. Okay. So what I'm hearing from you is over winter break, there are no commitments in blood that need to be made.
No blood commitments.
I love this idea of, okay, separating things into task work and thought work, taking some time on a walk or over a cup of tea or a cup of coffee to have some conversations with people that you trust about your goals for your educational path, and perhaps with other adults about what their career experiences have been. Talk with uncles or aunts or family friends who might be passing through over the next couple of weeks. Because our radio show listeners might find these segments weeks ahead of time or might watch this video after winter break has passed, I want to ask you, is there anything that students have to do over winter break that needs to be done in order for them to be able to tackle this process meaningfully in the coming year?
No, nothing whatsoever. Go live your best life. And I know that someone will want a more specific answer. So I will say, do the thought work to identify 3 driving factors so that when you go to the lot to buy your car, get your college, you know the 3 things that matter to you. And we skipped that part of my analogy. We did spend conversation as a family talking about a hybrid vehicle, electric vehicle, gas, environmental impact of car. And that led us to the lot. So that I think is if you've got to do one thing, is figure out 3 things that really matter to you about college.
Right. And we talked about how tall we all are and how big our dog is and getting out into camping trips, right? So like different priorities for different people. There's no right answer for everyone. There is a right answer for each person in terms of, again, that list and the goals that you're setting for yourself and these drivers. So good.
And read a good book.
Read a good book. Okay. That is something you have to do, is read a good book. Okay, Becky, you come on again for another segment sometime?
Maybe.
Okay, great.
Maybe.
We'll convince you. That's the end of this segment. We're going to take a break. Come on back. Don't go away.